I think we're live. Hey, Malcolm.
Hey.
Everyone, I want to introduce my friend Malcolm Saunders, and Malcolm is the owner or co-owner. Would you say co-owner of the Light Cellar? It's a family business.
That's right, family business. So even though many people actually probably don't know or have even met my wife, Laura, but yeah, we started together. It's been our co-creative journey. She definitely plays a big role behind the scenes. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've met her, and I realize that you guys have been at this a long time, and you've been patient and persistent, and hung in there with your vision, and moved into this location. You moved, was that last year or the year before that we
Yeah, year before. Yeah. So
wow.
that was, yeah, 2019. So it's going to be coming up on 2 years. So a year and a half we've been in the new location, and we were 10 years in the previous location, and we were about 2 years in our basement before that. And then, 6 months to a year out of her parents' basement prior to that. And yeah, you nailed it. It's that patience, it's persistence. It's just keep going forward, moving ahead with the dream kind of thing. And, yeah, that's I think the key to life, right? And success.
Yes, we'll, yeah, suit up and show up. It's part of it for sure. I didn't know. I was thinking, I went for a walk a while ago, a few minutes, an hour ago or so, and I was thinking, what will I speak with Malcolm about? Because we could talk about conscious business. We could talk about high vibration foods. You know, we could talk about current events. Um, we have enough material for 3 or 4 interviews. Um,
Totally.
you you
Yeah,
know,
I mean, what I expect, unless you came up with like, this is it going to be. I think we're probably going to weave our way through all that and more. So,
yes, I watched you do an interview the other day of um oh, what's his name? Lives on the island. Um,
oh, with Yarrow Willard or
yes, yes.
yeah.
And that was really informative. You guys talking about, the immune system and everything from mushrooms to mushrooms.
For sure. They're certainly allies. Absolutely.
You covered it all, and I enjoyed that interview, and so right now, a lot of, I think, what's up for people, it would be wonderful to hear is, when they come to your shop, what are the maybe top 3 or 4 things that they should pick up that's going to help them with the immunity?
Yeah. Okay. Well, great question. And we never want to assume that we know what is right. I mean, at least for me, like the first thing I do is I start asking questions because it is health is an individual journey, and I don't want it to be this prescriptive thing of like, well, okay, come on in and get this, and off the shelf. And it really, so the first thing I'll ask is, to get a sense of where people are at, what they have already included, maybe what they've tried, and trying to find, where we can upgrade and where maybe some holes might be. But let's speak kind of in broad terms, and you already mentioned one already, which is medicinal mushrooms. So generally, I think, depending on who I'm speaking with, there's a lot of people out there that still have not heard of medicinal mushrooms, or maybe they have heard about it but they haven't quite incorporated it, or maybe
Or
they've
know
kind of
how
gone
to?
down. What's that?
Or maybe they don't know how to,
Yeah, or
how
they
do
don't
they
know how to.
how do they put it in their diet? How do they take it into their bodies? So
Yeah, totally. So that all becomes individual conversation, but in general, I'm not sure if you and I have talked about this before, but I've got this idea of the 4 food groups,
okay.
and this is not what we're taught in school. This is not the Canada Food Guide. It's not those 4 food groups, but it's looking at, and just to be clear, it's not an idea unique to me. This is like literally just an observation of every culture around the world actually does consume foods from these 4 food groups. And one of those happens to be the fungi kingdom. And from that fungi kingdom, we get both food and medicine. I can't remember the exact percentage, but it's over 50% of our pharmaceuticals actually have their base in the fungal kingdom. So we
Wow.
are, Yeah, we are utilizing them as a source of medicine, just in a pharmaceutical form. You know, that's not right, that's not wrong. It's there's also an opportunity to tap into them as, you know, like whole foods, whole herbs, and go kind of direct to the source. So for instance,
Natural state, in their natural state.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, right. And I think many folks that would be listening to you and I mean, that's kind of the goal, right? I mean, I've been doing my own videos talking about, you know, current state of affairs, and I brought up this idea the other day of, you know, what we're all kind of being fed and pushed towards is the idea of a new normal. And I'm not interested in normal. I don't think you are either. I'm interested in what's more natural, right? And that's kind of been a guiding light through my life of how do I live a natural life? How do I do what comes naturally? And, you know, if we think about it, I mean, can be the highest compliment. Hey, you're such a natural, right? And if we can tap into what comes natural to us, you know, and it's also the greatest advice, you know, just be natural. So that to me has always been a guiding light, and no more so with food, absolutely, of how can we go back to that versus accepting what is normal, because we know where normal leads. If you eat normally, then you're eating, you know, standard American diet, which is the only culturally bad diet, right? There are no bad diets except for the Western, you know, standard American, modern, industrialized diet, which is the normal diet. So we got to get away from normal and we got to go back to natural, and hence this idea of the 4 food groups. Well, what is a natural diet for humans? Well, we eat plants, we eat animal foods, we eat fungal foods, and we'll get into that, those medicinal mushrooms. And then the other one I'm going to suggest as well is that we eat bacterial rich foods. So those are the 4 food groups. Everything we put in our mouth comes from one of those 4 food groups, unless we want to be sneaky and we want to add in a 5th food group, like the 5th sacred thing, the 5th element, the 5th taste. There's always a 5th, right? Which is the 4 elements, right? Earth, air, fire, and water. Because someone will say, well, what about, you know, like salt and minerals and water and air? And of course, obviously, you know, those are the elements. That's foundational. So beyond that, then it's within these 4 food groups. So medicinal mushrooms as a source of both food and medicine. So absolutely, you can get things like, you know, your button mushrooms and your shiitakes and your oyster mushrooms. And I love the ever expanding variety and access that, you know, grocery stores and farmers markets are kind of bringing on board. The future is fungi, and there's this resurgence towards you know, redeveloping that symbiotic relationship with fungi, utilizing it as food and medicine. And when we say fungi, you know, it's a massive kingdom that we have, you know, probably this much level of understanding. We're just kind of scratched the surface, even just, you know, identifiable species, benefits, properties. It's very, very small. But what we do know is that they are incredible allies. And when it comes to the medicinal mushrooms, specifically for the immune system, and why they're so fantastic is they are dual directional. So depending on what you need, right? Some people in our society, in our day and age, they actually have overactive immune systems. So when we talk about, okay, boosting the immune system, which, you know, who was it? There's been several, you know, regulating bodies that, you know, that's a banned phrase. You cannot say that you can boost your immune system. Okay, we better choose a different terminology. But, you know, honestly, some people, they don't want immune stimulation because it's already over heightened. So we need something that'll help bring it down. But there's the rest of us where we need to kind of bring it up. We have a lot that's going, you know, against our immune system, including things like fear. We know that with fear, stress, you know, poor diet, there's all these things that can lower immune system. So it can be very helpful to have that brought up. Well, medicinal mushrooms are fantastic in that they can modulate the immune system. So wherever you're at, it helps bring it back into balance, into more that optimal state. Whether it's overactive or underactive, you come back to that optimal state that you need to be in. And
I have a question about that. Actually, my brother had a double lung transplant several years ago, and so he takes an immune depressor, you know, because the body will want to reject the lungs. And I wonder if there was any natural, like if there'd be some way that some mushrooms would I guess they'd only be wanting to balance the immune system, not to depress it,
Right, suppress
yeah,
it. Yeah. So
that's it.
yeah, the context I've heard it in is like so autoimmune, right?
Yeah.
Versus yeah, immune
Oh, I
suppressor.
see. Yeah, yeah. When we're just it's over it. Yeah,
Yeah,
overactive for
it's
sure.
in the high drive already, kind of thing.
Yeah. What you know mushrooms that we all kind of know, or that you have there, would naturally help to balance the immune system.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm sure many people have heard of reishi and chaga. And according to all the literature, both of those are immunomodulators. Now, here's just kind of a little bit of an insight I've received. I personally, I don't do consultations or clinical work. That's not my path, but I know a lot of people that do, be they naturopaths or nutritionists, herbalists, so on and so forth. And so they get a lot of that direct feedback of, hey, working with my clients, suggesting these things, here's the results I'm seeing. And so even though kind of from the literature saying, chaga is an immunomodulator, anecdotally, I've heard that chaga is more of an immunostimulant. So if someone has an overactive immune system, I tend to kind of take that anecdotal suggestion in mind that, okay, maybe we're not going to go with chaga, but if you do need to kind of like amp up the immune system, it's definitely one of the best, right? So if
Yeah.
you're one of those people that's kind of always catching a cold and, coming down with one thing or the next, like, just a daily chaga tea can be incredible through those winter months to really amp up the immune system. And it does it in a number of ways. There are long chain polysaccharides that feed the immune system. It's also really high in certain minerals like zinc. That's been a buzzword for quite a while now.
Yeah.
Some of these mushrooms, you can actually, depending on how they're grown and harvested, they can actually have a significant vitamin D content, which also, again, we know is related to the immune system. But the main number one that I usually like to recommend is reishi mushroom. And it absolutely 100% is that immunomodulator. I've never heard it like I have only chaga in terms of being more stimulating. So it will bring up the immune system or bring it down depending what you need. And the most amazing thing about it, it's got this history, this kind of lore and reverence through many different herbal traditions. You can find reishi growing on every continent in the world. Only place you won't find it is Antarctica. It
Yes.
does need trees. It needs a forest ecosystem to grow. So, people around the world have been working with it for a long, long time. But most notably, the Chinese, the Oriental system, where they've really gone into depth in it and have hundreds, but if not thousands of years of use and the recorded use and observation around it. And what's so neat about it is, Dr. Terry Willard, who wrote a book on it, the subtitle of his book was, Reishi, herb of spiritual potency and medical wonder. So not only does it work, physiologically on our physical self, as he put it, as a medical wonder, because it doesn't just do one thing, right? A lot of our kind of thinking around health is we've gotten it from a pharmaceutical like model. Okay, you've got a
Yep.
headache, take this. It's gonna fix your headache. It only does this. It's this kind of like one action on the body, where that's not how herbs work, and that's definitely not how medicinal mushrooms work. They're very broad in their action.
The balance.
Yeah, they balance. So it's a medical wonder, physically, and like he put it in there, spiritual potency. It has this kind of spiritual element, which where's the line between mental, emotional, and spiritual? But it works on those levels as well. And the Chinese, they describe it as not only, well, they call it a three treasure tonic. So what are the three treasures in Chinese herbal medicine? They call it Jing, Qi, and Shen. And most of us would be most familiar with Qi, right? This idea of energy.
Yes.
And yeah, that's what we get, daily, like through just breathing, right? We're breathing in that prana, as the Ayurvedic system would call it, but it's pure qi gong, the movement of energy, the control of that energy, the building and the cultivation of that energy. Well, reishi helps bring in that energy as well. So it is a qi tonic. It's a jing tonic. Now, jing would be described more as that like deep energy, primal life force. It's almost could be described as, you know, how big is your candle, right? In that sense. So Jing, Qi, and Shen can be related on the metaphor of the candle.
Like foundational.
Yeah, right. And you know what happens is you get really tired, right? Like throughout the day, you kind of burn yourself out. You're like, oh, I'm out of chi, I'm out of energy, right? Like that middle afternoon crash or whatever it is. And then what happens? 20 minutes later, it's like, you got this energy, you're going again. It's like that second wind, you're tapping into those deep energy reserves. That's your jing. And actually, some other good analogies, I've had it explained, is, you know, a chi would be like a rock star, you know, like lots of like fire and smoke and energy and like, you know, like big, loud, bright energy. Whereas jing is like, you know, it's the 12th round in the MMA fight or the boxing match, right? It's the guy with that sustenance that just keeps going and going and going. That's your jing.
I need both. So in the spiritual?
And then the spiritual would be the Shen, right? So if we want to personify that, we could say, you, David, you have a lot of Shen, you know, like the Dalai Lama has a lot of Shen. There's a nice like spiritual, you know, aura and glow, and you can see it in someone's eyes. And if you can see energy a bit more, you can kind of see it in their aura, in their glow, who they are. It can also be manifested as, you know, mental or emotional disturbance.
You know, I just today, actually, I do a talk every morning or a video every morning. And I spoke about high vibrational things in our life, whether it's music, books, food, you know, the basically to surround ourselves with high vibrational situations or events, and I think of mushrooms that way. You know, that they're generally, I suppose there's some that aren't, but the two that you just spoke of would be reasonably high vibration, you know, but high vibrational foods.
Yeah, no, I've got friends that describe them as the noble polypores. You know, they have this kind of noble essence to them. They're at the top of the food chain within the entire fungi kingdom, the climax of that species. And if we think about where they originate from, like these are like, you know, spirit beings of the forest, right?
Yes. Yeah. Listening to your talk the other day with Yara, you know, and he reminds me a bit of an elf in the forest on the island, and just comes out to say hello, you know.
Totally. So, you know, it's that old sense of like you are what you eat. Everything that we consume has a quality, has an energy, and So there you go. You know, reishi, herb of spiritual potency and medical wonder. So not only is it going to help support us kind of physically, the adversity of stress that we all face every day, the adversity of the ongoing stress of this pandemic, and, you know, every day, and just trying to make it through, and it just keeps going on and on and on. And then the little situations that we find ourselves in that are stressful, like, you know, even bumping into people in grocery stores, right? Like there's a lot going on there. So it can help on so many different levels. And, you know, anecdotally, Terry had once told me that, you know, for someone to kind of shift, we all have that person that's in our life that's maybe a little bit closed off, right? Maybe they don't believe in the spiritual or whatever it is. They kind of have a closed mind to kind of that realm. You know, he says, even, you know, kind of within my context in terms of, you know, trying to open someone up to eating more high vibrational diet, looking a little bit deeper into their food and into life. He says, you know, just start with reishi. You know, that will be a nice little doorway. You don't even have to mention it. It just starts to work on that deeper level and can really open things up for someone.
So where do you suggest it? Like I buy the extract from you, and where, and I actually use it in my coffee, but with my blend in the morning with turmeric and lion's mane and grass-fed butter and MCT oil and
Yeah.
make my concoction. It's no longer coffee.
Yeah.
Coffee's
So
the carrier.
no, totally. It is, right? It's such a
Yeah.
great delivery system, especially because, you think about this and, I've been into the world of food nutrition, for over 20 years, way back when I started my journey. And one of the biggest challenging things is, to create a new habit, to add something new, right? That can be a challenge, right? It's like if you're given, like here, take this every day. It's like, okay, I got to fit this into my routine. I got to remember, I got to commit to this. Coffee. I mean, my wife's a coffee drinker. I mean, I can count on two hands the number of times she has not had a coffee, each day, for the almost 20 years we've been together, right? Like there's a commitment there. Like she loves it. And
Yeah.
it's not that she's addicted. It's just like that's a beverage that she really loves. And she's not like she's drinking 10 a day. It just at least one a day, she gets it in, right? So it becomes a carrier, it becomes a delivery system. What an amazing opportunity to be able to, no problem. I know every time I have a coffee, I'm going to add in my medicinal mushrooms and boom, I've got them for the day. Problem solved. And it's so easy. So then
Yeah.
it becomes, again, that further individualized conversation of, okay, what sort of, patterns, habits, routines do you have already that we can integrate this in? And do you like to brew tea? Or are you like, no, not going to do it. I'm not going to get out the pot and, put these slices in and bring it to a boil and simmer it. It's like, I just need the quick, the easy, just drop it in my coffee. So all this becomes a factor because there's many different ways to be able to consume it, but it's got to come from what's the easiest. And most of us do have like a morning beverage. Typically it's, hot tea or coffee, but even if it's a smoothie, like you can add it in that way as well.
Yes, there's lots of ways to put it in. I add a little collagen as well, and
Yeah.
so it's and a little lemon, not but just a lemon oil or lemon, um, so kind of intense a lemon, not
Yeah.
an actual lemon in my coffee.
Cool.
Yeah,
So
I
now,
was at
now
the
we're
shop
getting,
and today made me something in the in your little kitchen there, your little food bar. What do you call that?
we
Um,
call it the elixir bar.
elixir
Yeah.
bar. Yes.
And that's what we're getting into as you're describing this, right? This is the opportunity. This is the perfect delivery system is the elixir,
Yeah.
which I like to say, it brings together the best in modern nutrition with ancient herbal wisdom, and it's that integration. It's the practical application of let food be thy medicine, medicine be thy food, where we're piggybacking already on, the routines that we have: the morning coffee, the afternoon tea, the grab and go smoothie. We can elevate those, kind of like stacking in the nutrients, just like you described, right? It's like
Yes.
you got it
Yeah.
all in for the day.
Have you ever considered bringing in coffee?
We do have it at the Elixir Bar, but it's not something that we sell as an item. And partly, I have to say, there's a slight personal bias to that, just because it's not my world. Like the
Yeah.
same with, we don't really sell a lot of tea in the sense of green tea, black tea. I mean, it's a whole other world that
Yeah.
I'm not very well versed in. And
Yeah.
there's so many other places like coffee suppliers, and there's great
Yeah.
quality out there. So we
Yeah.
do offer it as a ready-made prepared beverage, but not the
Yes.
bulk herb as it
Yeah.
is. It
I'm
is.
a bit of a Dave Asprey fan, and Dave's I've read his book, Headstrong, and he really talks a bit about finding coffee that's been properly processed or properly grown and doesn't have mold and all of those things, and it's not that easy to find.
I know,
And
yeah, because
anybody in the coffee business is even aware of that.
I know. Yeah, it's unbelievable. So much of our food system has, well, like we started off talking, it's just gone to this kind of industrialized level, which, was chosen and selected for certain criteria, which didn't always necessarily have health in mind in that regard. So now we're, we're trying to flip that.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's partly, honestly, how Light Cellar started, whereas like, in kind of my own personal journey of seeking out, different ingredients, quality ingredients that just weren't, available, because as a culture, we'd gone so far down one path that we'd really kind of narrowed our choices, and the quality was super low. Like we have an incredible, I would call it a pandemic of, super high calories and very low nutrients from the food we consume. So we need to flip that. We need to get, lower calories, higher nutrients. And
I was in the store the other day and I bought some olive oil from you that you got from a single supplier, it was called, and I forget the name of it, but just recently I've started to just take olive oil in the morning with a pinch of Himalayan salt. And what do you recommend around olive oil?
yeah, I mean, the one that you got is pretty incredible. So it's from Greece, and we have a staff member here. That's her heritage, that's her roots. All her family's from there. And when she tasted that, she's like, "Yeah, that's the real thing. That's authentic." And
I take it straight, just and it's supposed to be good for a lot of health, for the heart, for the respiratory system, for everything.
it really is, and one thing that we've really taken a wrong turn in our society is kind of our mentality around fats, and in particular, like, seed oils and polyunsaturated fats. The idea that we're, drinking, there's a time and a place for things like flax oil, I believe, that can be used medicinally. But something like flax, was traditionally, historically, always used more as an industrial ingredient, right? Like linseed oil had these industrial applications, not as a food. And I believe there is a time and a place, but the majority of our fats should come from these more traditional sources, like olive oil, like butter, particularly saturated fats versus the polyunsaturated fats. And I think one of the worst, which has so much wide acceptance, is canola oil. Canola oil, I think, is actually really toxic and not something we should be consuming. It was, kind of a late post-wartime effort where, Canada oil low acid seed, also known as rapeseed, we were growing as a backup oil source during the war, again, for industrial uses. And then once the war ended, we had all this abundance of this, seed crop and this oil that they went about trying to figure out how we could then consume it and turn it into a food crop. And they were successful. And, still to this day, we're consuming it when really we shouldn't be. And then we went even further, where we started to hydrogenate it into things like margarine, chemically manipulating it, forcing in hydrogen atoms to change the state of it. And
Margarine. Do people still eat margarine?
They do. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
I can't. My mother used to buy that,
Yeah. No,
it's
mine too.
a long time ago, and or she used to buy something that was like a lard that she mixed with color to make it look like butter, and it might have been margarine as well. I don't know, but there was some pretty bad stuff. We didn't have real butter,
Yeah.
around the house that much, and I can't now. I mean, all my butter's grass fed. I it's expensive though. You buy like a half a pound is $4 or $5, and but I couldn't imagine putting even regular butter in my coffee.
Yeah, no, it's true. Like, because the quality, the nutrient profile is different. It's night and day, right? So a lot of these seed oils and even a lot of the conventional butter, because they're feeding grains to a lot of these cows, including things like soybean oil, cottonseed oil. And that, what ends up doing is kind of ramping up the omega-6 content in their fat and therefore in the milk, versus the omega-3 and the CLA, which is, high omega-3s and extremely beneficial and anti-inflammatory. So, they're almost like two different foods, depending on the system that it comes out of and how they're fed and treated. So, in our society, we've got this idea that we've gotten used to cheap food.
Yes.
And most of the rest of the world spends a good proportion of their income on their food, on their nourishment. Yet in North America, like, we're trying to spend as little as possible. And I get it, like no one wants to spend more, but I'm much more into quality. I'm not into cheap food.
Well, if we're going to be spending money, it would make sense to spend it on our food. It's just
Right?
like it's the place to put it. Tell me about a coconut oil. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm a big
coconut
fan of
oil.
coconut. You know, and I love it when I'm in Asia and I can just drink, right out of the coconut and
Oh yeah.
scoop out the insides of the coconut and
Yeah, I mean, it's as you know, it's one of those plants that has that long time cultural reverence, so much so that they has been described as the tree of life. It has supported people in life so much that it is the tree of life. And as you know, so much of it is useful and edible. All the way from the water, right? Incredible for electrolytes, rehydration. They've even used it in hospital applications, to kind of like hydrate
intervenously,
patients,
I've heard.
IV drips and
Yeah, wow,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's so cool.
And
Um,
then, of course, the fat, which you're talking about, is an incredible fat. Even though it would be described as a saturated fat, and kind of people of old nutrition paradigm would demonize that, but no, it's the good stuff, and it's a medium chain fatty acid that we can actually burn and utilize as energy. And it's actually got even antifungal properties to it with the caprylic and capric acid as well.
I actually um, use it to butter my toast.
Right.
As opposed to butter on the toast, sometimes I'll use coconut oil, and it's quite nice. I love the taste of it. And
Yeah, awesome. So here's one of those clues, right? In terms of, we started off the conversation how our modern kind of industrialized society is taking a lot of wrong turns. We've gotten things completely backwards when it comes to nutrition. A lot of that has come about from industry, from marketing, and to kind of get out of that and really get back on track, looking to traditional diets, right? Looking to culture as a lens through which to look through food, right? Where there's that
that,
long-term history of use and reverence. Like, you can't tell me that coconut oil is bad or coconut's bad because it's saturated fat. It's like, that's total garbage. Like, look at how it sustained life for so many generations. Healthfully, right? Like margarine's the new kid on the block. Like, we should be treating it with incredible suspicion, not demonizing these other things that have been long staples in traditional diets.
yeah, I can't even imagine. I didn't know people still ate margarine, but I guess that it's
Yeah.
it's
And
still
so, is it any wonder, because of the diet, the lifestyle, everything that our society embodies? Is it any wonder that a little virus comes along and takes us to our knees, right? Like, we're so susceptible because we have such a poor foundation of health.
yes. I don't. I, I guess I want to be careful what I say, but um, recognizing there's so much obesity, maybe more in the United States than in Canada, and that a lot of the folks that are really having a tough time are people that are obese,
Yeah,
and
totally. I mean, the comorbidities, right? Like, and I don't want to say in absolute terms because someone will be like, oh, well, did you hear about that really super healthy young 25-year-old that was susceptible to this? Okay, maybe there are exceptions, but we know, the vast majority are elderly and they have other health complications.
yes, yeah,
Yeah,
clearly two or three or four
yeah,
other, diabetes and dementia, and they're not well. They're lots of times, and I have some opinion about you know how long we keep people alive actually. Um,
oh, for sure.
but that's a whole other subject. Don't get it. I don't have a position on it. I do have an opinion on it, especially I mean in my own case, if I were um, you know in a full care place, and and with dementia, God, let me go. Bring your
Yeah,
pillow.
totally.
Take
And
take me out.
I mean, from a lot of kind of anecdotal evidence, articles, memes, people's personal reports, that seems to be the overwhelming case too, where we're quarantining and isolating these elders, and it's just a tragedy. And most of them say, would from what I've heard, give me the virus. Like I'd rather have that than this reality of you trying to quote unquote protect me.
Yeah, yeah. I remember with my own mother, as she got well along in her 80s, and was still living in the Brunswick, and there just wasn't anybody that could keep her in their home, and she did not like the long-term care place that she was at, and the last couple of years she wasn't very mobile, and it was just a holding position really, and but other than that, I think that you're right. A lot of people, if we were in better health or more conscious, uh, you know um, this this virus wouldn't be having the effect that it's having, and you know but obviously not everybody's going to be a yogi, and and or even a lot of us have lost, we're not doing the exercise that we could be doing,
Right.
and there's so many things that it just actually, I have a show. I kind of do a video every day, and most of it's about consciousness and spiritual tools, if you will, about being in the moment, being present, and but all of this is, this health piece is, and the how we eat and how we look after ourselves and how we look after the body is connected.
Yeah.
It's a um and I think that and so is exercise, and so if we're not healthy, it's not that easy to meditate or to be present, and so I think they're all it's holistic, really. So
Yeah,
um
totally. I mean, that's a big part of how I got in this path. Was I was first really into yoga and meditation. And if you study that system, the idea of the hatha yoga and the asanas was literally just to prepare the body for meditation, to have that optimal physical functioning so you could really have that divine experience, here on earth. And yeah, you're totally right.
yeah, so you're doing that. Do you have a one of the things that I remember a number of years ago, you were doing some work around conscious business, and supporting people in, what does that look like, and right now, I would have to say that a lot of people in the yoga business are having a tough go, you
Right.
know, and we don't really know how long this is going to go on. We really don't. We're kind of optimistic, and we're thinking, okay, there's this vaccine, and hopefully a whole bunch of people take it. It probably won't be me, but but again, I'm not going to get into that either. But it
Yeah.
just and that being the case, it's going to, if the damn thing works, because I don't think that they've really looked at the long term uh, uh, deal on this one. And
Oh, they haven't at all. They haven't at all. Like they've had some very short-term studies, right? All that time could allow. So it's very clear this is new. It's experimental. We absolutely do not have long-term studies. And one of the main reasons that anyone should be cautious, and this is not an anti-vax statement. This is like just be aware. There's no
uh,
long-term studies,
yeah,
and the single key of why there has not been a mRNA vaccine before, why they've never come out to market with one, is because that in animal studies, the trials, things seem to go okay during the studies. But then what happens is, in study I'm citing, is they had vaccinated some ferrets. And then later on, like a year later, when the ferrets came across a wild version of the virus, right? So it's one thing, okay, get the jab, the body, does its thing, is adjust. But then as you go out into the world and you come across that virus, that's where the real troubles begin. according to those studies, and why it has never moved further. You get this incredible cytokine storm, and really caused so much concern that they would stop the studies, and we haven't had that type of vaccine before. So yeah, there's a lot of question marks, a lot of missing pieces to that. So one should approach it with caution, and I think you're right. I think one needs to look at this with kind of a realistic level head. We, in my own personal opinion and observation, this is probably like a decade, honestly. Like, you know, the 2020s is through this whole decade is we're going to kind of flip in and out of this type of existence. Unfortunately, is kind of the way I'm seeing it. Maybe it's a bit pessimistic, but I think it's just being realistic. This is not going away tomorrow. Even if we did, even if we just like kind of solved it tomorrow, or it went away or whatever, we're still going to have all these repercussions, you know, of businesses closed, people's mental and emotional health, even just the, you know, how people have become so hypersensitive to the awareness of, like, you know, foreign invader and virus, and it's like people are uncomfortable. I mean, I own a store, like I'm around people all the time. I'm sure you've experienced. You walk down an aisle and people are scared of each other, right?
No, I walk in the neighborhood and I purposely actually say hello to everybody.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and it's almost like poking a stick at them, you know. They're like, you know,
So
say
what
hi, how you
the
doing?
long-term psychological effects of that, I think
Yeah.
even that alone, we're going to have to, like, it's going to take a while to really work through, because even now, I mean, there's so much data, there's so much science around this. The fact that it does not travel by surfaces. There has been 0 cases related to transmission from surfaces. Because I don't know if you remember back in March, like, we didn't know, right? And everyone was like sanitizing and sterilizing everything. You know, like, you go to the grocery store, you got to wipe your bags down before you bring them in. You got to like have a quarantine spot. Like, we didn't know, but now we know. It's through droplets. It's not the surface. But what are people doing? They're still sterilizing everything, right? And
Yes, yeah, they
yeah,
still are.
there's a
I'm pretty grateful. I still have, like, I've been in a men's group for years, and my men's group, which is not, I'm also involved in the 12-step world. I've been there for a long time too. But in my men's group, we've been deemed as a kind of an essential thing, and so we still meet. And I love that I have that community. On Thursday nights we meet actually outdoors, and it's so I still have, you know, a lot of community that people don't, you know. And I go to I'm active in the 12-step world, and work with lots of newcomers and stuff like that, and those are deemed essential as well to
yeah,
those meetings. So I'm you know, where a lot of folks don't have that. They don't have anywhere to go where they're still in working with and being with people, and dealing with you know, the other realities of life, you know. And men's team, you know, guys are coming, you know, they're still dealing with, you know, how to get along with in their relationship, and actually often it's relationship stuff, you know. And because you know, men aren't so good sometimes at relationship stuff. And that's that maybe a meme in itself, but still, it,
right.
it is where we work a lot. So I like that I get to do that. I'm very blessed that I get to be part of that, and because a lot of people aren't. Now, so I hear what you're saying, that this could be a much longer haul than we even imagine. We don't know anything. I did a talk the other day on the fact that we're coming to the reality that we don't know. Lots of people are like waking up to, holy shit, I really don't know. And
Yeah,
but because before we thought we knew, you know, we kind of thought we knew what was going to happen. Next summer we're going to go visit our family in the East Coast, you know, or whatever. We had plans, you know, and we were and now we're dealing with the real reality, which is that we never knew, you know.
yeah.
And living more closely to the moment is where the bliss is anyway, you
Yeah,
know.
totally. So there's a lot of silver linings that, you know, we can all utilize in our own life. You know, I've had some big transformations in too, in terms of like, okay, this is the reality, so let's shift life up, and in doing so, it's kind of moved me in a better direction. And I know it's really tough. It's a challenge for a lot of people, and it's kind of scary when there's the death of the old, and by that I mean, like you said, like, as I would say, kind of that statement that we know is representative of our society and our culture. Like we think we're the top, we're the pinnacle, we've got this covered, we know, like we're
Yeah.
just gonna keep going on this trajectory. And then it's like, actually not. There's so much about our way of life that is unsustainable, and it's degenerative, and it's coming to an end. And that is scary. But in that death, there can be that rebirth of, okay, let's find new ways to be and to exist, not only in our day-to-day, but
Yeah.
bigger and broader as well.
Of course. And I think, a big part of that is looking after our health and,
Yeah.
and feeling better. When I eat, well, I don't very often, but if I eat processed foods, it brings me down. It's low vibration, and everything is vibrational. If we take a moment, I think the whole idea of saying, say, a prayer before we eat is to lift the vibration of the food, and you know um, we live in a vibrational world, and this, well, no, the world is vibrational.
Yeah.
It's not, it's all, kind of all it is. It's all, we're in this matrix, this quantum physics. Nassim, do you know Nassim? Oh, the
Harman.
quantum physics guy. What's his last name?
Yeah. Nassim Harman.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
And the food is this, like that. I mean, mushrooms are this high vibrational food, and when you go in your shop, when I go in your shop, I feel it. The vibration of the place, and which is pretty sweet. So I think making peace with a little bit of grief over the loss of what we thought we knew is appropriate. I really do, and I think that for us to talk about it is maybe to help some people to see, well, actually, things are not ever going to be the same in our lifetime. There is no same. There never was a same.
Yeah, that's guaranteed. We are not going back to normal, like the life we had, a year ago, even, right? Like that, I'm 100% convinced that that is over, and we're in this kind of new era, and we got to move through some kind of real kind of like ickiness, I feel, when it comes to how we're thinking, feeling, operating as a society, getting pushed towards this new normal. I think it's rejecting that, and finding our own way and our own kind of new way to live and expression.
And we've been living, many of us, pretty fat financially, and as a whole, and I think that we may have to make some adjustments. That the uh, maybe in some cases people will be living together, and it's just we just may not be able to afford to live the way we have been living, and of course it could mean a complete shift in the monetary system.
Oh,
uh,
totally. I think that's 100% coming. That's even a bigger crisis, and some people have suggested, like it's going to be easy to blame our response to the virus as what caused the crash. But the crash was imminent either way. And I think, if anything, our response and how we've kind of locked down societies and froze economies has only accelerated what was about to happen. And I think you're right in terms of a shift. We have been living large, primarily through, the US dollar being the world's reserve currency, which initially had merit, of like, they had the most gold, they had a lot going for them, that made sense, that, okay, let's make that the world's reserve currency. But, that time is long expired, and they've literally just been using force to maintain that position. And yeah, we definitely need a shift. That time is coming. I think there is going to be a kind of a currency reset. Who knows what that's going to look like? I'm sure somebody has got plans for that somewhere, but it will shift things in a major way.
Interesting. So, I mean, we can look at it a number of different ways. We can look at it with, fear, or we can look at it with anticipation. My philosophy, if you will, is that this is all for me, There's nothing against me and nothing against any of us. It's like, so okay, how do we evolve into whatever's happening? Only 100 years ago, um, some people didn't have electricity. It was like we've come a long way in a very, very short time. And I kind of think there's lots of exciting stuff happening. I'm a big fan of Elon's. I love the Musk man, doing what he's doing in the space and electrical cars and all the stuff that he's up to. He's going to control, or he's going to own the internet. Because his satellites will be, all over the planet. So there's some fun stuff coming. I think that if we can look at it that way and say, wow, this is a new world, and yeah, I don't know exactly nobody knows what it's going to look like, but
Yeah,
in the
totally.
interim, I think that we're still going to, I think, keep our system of how we move food, but maybe not. Maybe there may be a time when we're going to become more local, which is a little hard on us because of our climate. Do you see that we're going to do more greenhouse and more?
Yeah, absolutely. I really do. And, I was kind of expecting more of a kind of a food supply chain disruption, price increase sooner than we've had it. There's definitely still rumors of it and the brink of it. Most notably, China's just been buying and buying and buying, like huge amount of crops. Soybean price has been going up, wheat prices and corn price have been going up. Some countries have actually stopped exports. US just continues to kind of, put it out to the rest of the world. But I think we may very well see the ramifications of that, maybe as early as kind of the springtime or later. Yeah, and yeah, we absolutely need to shift. So right now, I'm taking a permaculture course, learning. Not that I'm under any illusion that I'm going to grow my own food 100%, but the more I can do, the better. Even if it's just a little bit of basil in the windowsill, anything like that, I think is good to move in that direction. Because what I'm learning, the instructor Rob Avis, he's saying by a lot of models, how we grow food right now to support our kind of industrial food system, we have about 40 crops left in terms of topsoil. That's not a long time, obviously. And so we absolutely need to shift those systems, and it's going to be, the trend's already happening, and I wish to see it grow, that kind of relocalization of food system.
Yeah.
Farmers markets and all that. That's kind of true resilience, and it'll be true wealth to move back towards that.
Inner city gardens. We've got to do something with the deer then.
Yeah.
I
Well,
put my garden in last year. I worked all year, and the deer really loved my lettuce.
right. Yeah.
Hey,
Well, depends on your outlook. We can eat them too.
we can eat them too. Is right. But quietly, I wouldn't be talking about it.
Right. Yeah.
Wonderful spending time with you. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, always appreciate our conversations and our connection. So thanks for reaching out and inviting me on today.
Yes, I'm going to take this, even though it's on YouTube now live. But I'm going to just clean it up a little bit, and I'll put it on YouTube. Maybe you can share it after, if you want.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
you have a Facebook or any social media, I'll send you the link. And I think we've had a lot of people follow us on in this interview on Facebook. There's been some comments, and people love you. There you, you have. There's some folks recognize you, and they're happy to see you here. So that's pretty cool. So
Okay.
be another time. It would be nice to talk more about conscious business, and also I'm concerned about, I'd love to speak more about, what are some of the we have a lot of friends that have like yoga studios, and how, what's going to happen with that when, are we ever going to get back to the yoga studio, so maybe Actually, things are moving so fast. I'll probably call you in about 3 months, and
All
we'll
right.
we'll see where we're at. And I love your perspective on what's happening. You are on the front line, and so thanks so much.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you. I look forward to our next chat.
Okay, bud. Thank you. Talk soon. Bye bye.
All right.